guys, and welcome back. Before I start, I'm going to apologise again if you can hear any drilling or anything like that. I'm really sorry. They're doing lots of roadworks around here at the minute. And yeah, there is literally no other time that I can film. I had to leave it for weeks and weeks and weeks until they finish, because God knows when they'll be done. I don't really have much of the time in the day because both of the children are napping at the minute. So it is the only chance that I have actually had to just, sit down and film and just chat to you guys. So as promised, here is the follow-up video of my labour and birth video, and I will put that in the description below. But basically this is going to talk about M's condition and what's wrong with him, basically. It's a question that I get asked quite a lot, because obviously when I'm out and about and things, he has an NG tube in, which if you follow me on Instagram you will have seen. You might have read a little bit about it, and obviously if you've seen my other videos, you've seen photos of him and things, you'll know he does have an NG tube, and that's sort of it's really the only indicator that there is anything wrong with him. Aside from that, he pretty much just looks like a normal baby. And for the most part he is. So after he was born, he wasn't really breathing properly, and the midwife spotted it straight away, obviously because he was crying. She got a good look in his mouth, and he has a cleft palate. And because of the cleft palate, he cannot feed. He can't suck because and then people keep saying to me things like, oh, it's just a little cleft palate. It's actually not. There's much more to it than that, and it's not a little cleft palate. They're like, oh, I knew someone who had that and it was fixed straight away. His can't be fixed straight away because of his other issues, and I'll get to that. But people keep trying to, lessen what it is, basically, and it's not just a little thing. And I wish that people would understand that. I wish that people would just stop brushing it off and stop being like, oh, it's just a little this, it's just a little that. It's not nothing. It's something that requires him to actually be fed by tube, because he cannot form the vacuum seal that all other babies have that enables them to suck. It is the entire roof of his mouth is just gone. So it isn't just like a teeny tiny little hole that can be fixed. If he vomits or anything, it comes out of his nose as well. The gap is that huge. You can literally see up into his nose. So I'll pick up where I left off. He was taken down to neonates, and there is a cleft specialist in I assume pretty much all areas of the UK have one. There's a cleft specialist. There is one of only 3 in the northeast, and I think they actually cover the whole of the north. I mean, she goes right the way up to Carlisle. So yeah, they do the whole of the north of the UK, basically. So yeah, we were basically shown to a room, told to just go to bed, and they will call the specialist in the morning and come down and see her. And that's what we did. We didn't really have much of another choice. And obviously they took him off to neonates to put the tube in so that he could actually be fed. But bless him, he did try. Obviously they brought him, he couldn't breastfeed, he couldn't latch at all. They brought him a bottle, and he did seem like he was sucking for ages. We were like, oh, he's doing really well. Checked the bottle, he'd actually not had a single drop. So we went to the specialist in the morning, and she basically said, yes, he does have a cleft palate, but it isn't just a cleft palate. He's got a condition called Pierre-Robin sequence. And basically what that means is when he was in the womb, and this happens before I was even like 3 months pregnant, his lower jaw just hasn't developed properly. I mean, it's there, everything's fine, but it's a lot shorter, it's a lot smaller than it's supposed to be. So it sits a lot further back. He has a really, really significant overbite. And basically because that's happened, so some babies with PR-band do get a cleft palate and some don't, but the ones that do, it tends to be a significant palate. And I mean, in America they treat it surgically. It is not necessary. It is because in America medicine is deemed a business. It's not like, it's people's lives. And they take, brand new infants, they snap their jaw and align it. I mean, that is a difficult process for even an adult. Can you imagine putting a baby through that? Like, it's just barbaric. I can't fathom how or why they would do it, because the jaw does naturally grow as they get older, and while it's technically always going to have the condition, it's just not going to be as significant the older he gets. So he might always have a little bit of an overbite, but by the time he's an adult, even in his teens, it's really not going to be that visible, it's not going to be noticeable. And so yeah, it's just not really necessary to treat it. He obviously has an NG tube to help him, but other things come with it basically. So the reason some people call it a syndrome, and it's not really, it's the wrong term for it. It is a sequence because there are lots of little things that come with it. So obviously he does have a cleft palate, the reason that happens basically is because when it's all actually technically there, but it sits at the side, like where his teeth would be. And so the way that cells grow, they like branch over, but they've got to like stack on top of each other to meet in the middle. And sometimes what happens is they just don't. They start growing and then they go, wait a minute, there isn't anything there. And so they just pile on top of each other. So that's basically what's happened. The roof of his mouth is there, but it's not where it should be. It sits around the sides of his mouth. So after he is a year old, he will have an operation to fix that. He will need a lot of speech therapy because chances are he won't be able to talk. He may end up with a second operation. Sometimes the operation isn't successful. And that is why we'll have a speech therapist. She will be able to determine whether the speech is due to a faulty palate, or if he is an early talker, and given that his brother was, and his brother's a very good talker, kids with older siblings tend to talk quicker to, like, I don't know, I guess they want to play with them, they've got more models to copy off of. And so if he does say words wrong and things, there's more sounds than not he's not going to be able to say anything. If you try and talk without touching your tongue to the roof of your mouth, it's not really possible. Most letters require that. So he's going to be able to say things like m, 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 and p, 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 but that's pretty much it. He can do o and and yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, and the speech therapist will be able to determine whether it's just because he's maybe learned to speak differently, or what, and she'll be able to help it and everything. So he may need a second operation, but we won't know obviously until after the first. And yeah, then also what happens, he struggles to breathe sometimes. He literally cannot lay on his back. Because the Pierre Robin, his tongue doesn't sit in the right place in his mouth, and he's got a normal sized tongue, even though he's got a small jaw. It pushes his tongue to the back of his throat. So yeah, it always like catches in his throat and you can hear it. He makes a kind of like choking sound, I guess. You can hear it when it does happen. So it's because obviously he's got a breathing obstruction. And because of that, that actually delayed us getting out of hospital. Because they have, I don't remember what the machine's called, but they've got a machine where they monitor their oxygen intake by a little sensor on their foot. Not really sure how a sensor on the foot does that, but it's magic, I guess. And these machines are basically set up, obviously he was in neonatal, and most babies on neonatal are premature. He wasn't. He was 39 and 2 days. So he really very, very much was not premature. And he was 7'14" at birth as well. So he was, he was massive compared to most of the other babies there. And so they had him on this machine that was designed, it's very overly sensitive basically, because it's designed to check the airway levels of preemie babies. And he doesn't actually have an oxygen intake problem. His is an airway obstruction, which can be easily managed by keeping him on his side. He has to be on his side all the time, or sat upright. He cannot lay on his back. Obviously he can for like 2 seconds while you change a nappy. It doesn't take long to change a nappy though. And if he is continuously making the sound, and despite repositioning, it won't stop, then he should be taken to hospital. But yeah, I mean, it's easily enough managed, and because the hospital just weren't used to dealing with this sort of thing, and they were like, yeah, but to discharge him, we need to get this sort of reading on the machine, and he's not getting that. And the specialist came, and she was like, why? What are you doing? She was absolutely livid, and it was so funny. So they weren't letting us go. And I was like, yeah, but he's fine though. Look at him. He's only dipping when he's laying on his back for a change, or when he gets picked up to be fed. And as he's getting older, it's getting easier. His muscles are getting stronger. He's learning how to control it more and things. So it's just easier now. But yes, she was absolutely fuming basically. And so she took all of his readings and she sent them off to the specialist hospital. When he gets his operation, it won't be at our local hospital. He'll have to go to a special one. And so they downloaded all of the stats and said, no, it's fine. There's no reason, he's doing really well. There's no reason for him to be there. And they also weren't marking off, basically. They weren't checking it against when he'd been fed or changed or anything like that. They weren't actually saying, oh yeah, this dip was here because of this and this dip was there because of that. They were just saying, oh, he's struggling for oxygen. And on top of that, they were testing him while giving him oxygen. They put in an oxygen tube, and it made absolutely no sense to do that. She was like, why are you doing this? You're doing the test, but that's not going to reflect how he does off oxygen. There's no good doing that. So yeah, anyway, luckily she was there and she got it all sorted, and the specialist hospital said, yeah, he's fine, there's nothing wrong with him, send him home. Because I was like, look, I've got a toddler at home, and really you're just kind of wasting NHS resources at this point, and I'm not really sure why you're doing it, so just let us go. Now, it is quite rare PRS is something like 1 in 3,000 babies, so it really, really is quite rare. And I've never ever heard of anyone have it. Since obviously having him, a few people have cropped up and things. I've heard of a few people who have cleft palate babies. But I mean, in the UK, there are less than 50 babies a year born with it. So yeah, it is quite rare. There are occasionally other things that can happen with it. Paraban also comes with glue ear, is quite common. But obviously it's not too bad. But also sight things can be an issue. And because he was born with this, they genetically tested him to see if he has anything else. Because I don't know, I guess being aware is better. And they did find this chromosome he's missing. It's only a part of his chromosome. Like just a very, very small portion of it he is missing. And it's very, very, very rare, and they don't know if it has caused the PRS or if that could have been from something else, because there's only something like 70 medical cases of it. People don't really get tested for it. If you tested every single person in the world, chances are pretty much anyone who's going to have some sort of genetic chromosome issue, but it doesn't always affect people. Or some of them are just very, very mild, and they would like maybe have more of like a predisposition to something like depression. But obviously some things are more significant, like Down syndrome. But so basically this is kind of a 50-50. You can sometimes just carry it and not be affected by it. But by the same token as well, you've got a 50-50 shot of passing it on to your children, which means it has come from me or my partner. And so there's a 50-50 shot, and there's like a lot of behavioural things associated with it, so like ADHD and autism and learning difficulties and things like that are known for with this chromosome. But there's no guarantee that they do come from the chromosome, because there are so few people known to have it. It could just be random. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I think that's everything. He's going to have an operation. I mentioned that his jaw will just grow naturally. The operation will take place after he's a year old, because it'll get reviewed, I think, when he's about 10-11 months old, because they need to see if his jaw is big enough, basically, if his mouth is big enough for these little tools to fit in. But obviously we'll talk more about that at the time, and if you want another video about it once I've met with the surgeon, then I'll do that. But yeah, I think that's about it really. I tried to and simplify it as much as I can, and condense all the information, because obviously when we first found out, we were literally just, all of this information was thrown at us at the same time, all in one go, and it was a lot to take in. And everyone kept saying to me like, are you okay? Are you alright? And I'm like, yes, I'm fine. Like, everyone kept expecting me to have like a mental breakdown or something, or like be emotional about it, and I just wasn't. And so then later on I thought, like, did it make me a bad person not to be? But I don't know, I'm quite a relaxed person, and I just think, you know, it just is what it is. Like, life is, it's just life. And you know, these things are going to happen. I think my family actually had a hard time with it, because there is never, ever, 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 ever been a disability in our family. No one has ever been born with any sort of condition or anything wrong with them. I think my sister had grommets in when she was little, due to obviously not great hearing, but she still does hear, you know, she's not actually deaf or anything. And that is probably the most significant thing that has ever happened in our family. So it was difficult for them, I think, and it took them a while longer to like wrap their heads around it and accept it. But I don't really see the point in like sweating the small stuff, really. It just is what it is. You can't change it. There's nothing you can do about it. And he is getting all of the help and care that he needs, literally through his entire life, you know, well into his teenage years. He's going to have speech therapists and like specially trained orthodontists, and you know, he won't just go to a regular optician or anything like that. He gets specialist people. You know, we get weekly visits by a cleft specialist nurse, and that's why when he wasn't gaining weight, they switched his milk up, and you know, he doesn't have a chance for anything to go wrong, for there to be any sort of fault or whatever, because he has so many medical professionals around him that are like straight on it, and just fix the problem. So it's really not that big a deal. It was, you know, it was a bit more to adjust to. It was hard being in hospital for like 2 weeks and having a toddler at home. It was really, really hard. And I do kind of feel like I missed out on all of the newborn stage, basically, because he's nearly 4 months old now. You know, he's, what day is it? Yeah, in a week's time, he is 4 months old, and that to me is just insane. Like, he holds his head up, he's trying to roll, he even tries to sit up. He's so physically strong. He loves standing. He's so curious. He just wants to know everything about the world. And so it's weird that he's, you know, he really is a normal baby. He just needs a bit more help with feeding, and he's not really going to develop any different than a normal baby. He'll probably just need a bit more help with speech. But I feel like in the beginning, you know, we spent 2 weeks in hospital, and in the first 2 weeks we were just flooded with this nurse and this hospital appointment, that hospital appointment, and it did sort of start to settle down a bit, but then it picked up again, and we had like this thing and that thing, and you know, this hospital, and you know, we've been to so many different hospitals, and we've seen so many different medical professionals, from nurses to doctors to surgeons to speech therapists, and you know, even things like orthodontist. It's going to be years off that he's going to need an orthodontist. He doesn't even have teeth, but we've got an orthodontist, and we've got a dietitian, and we have literally got every single medical professional possible. I just think because we went to all of these appointments and did all of these things, we just kind of missed him being small. Like, you know, we've blinked and he's nearly 4 months old. He's going to be eating in a couple of months' time, and it's just gone so quickly. But yeah, like, that's my only kind of thing about it. I just feel like it's it took away that baby stage. You know, I remember after N was born and just staying in bed. I literally don't think we got out of bed for like 2 weeks, and we just stayed in bed and we just snuggled all the time, and it was great. But I couldn't do that this time around. And you know, he spent the first couple of days in an incubator. And then when he came out of the incubator, he still had all these wires and there was all these nurses, and they, I mean, I guess it's, you know, for their own ease and everything, but they do everything like clockwork. So I just kind of felt like I was just in the way, and it's awkward sitting there in this room with all these other mums and all these other babies, and then their families are coming in and visiting. Sometimes it's just really, really loud, and there's like, you know, a lot of people in there. So as much as I wanted to spend all of my time there wasn't a lot that I could do, just sit and stare at him for 2 weeks. And yeah, so I just felt like I didn't really get that like newborn time, that bonding or anything. But yeah, that is sort of my only, I don't know, upset about it. Like, it's the only annoying part about it. But you know, I don't really mind that he has the condition or anything. It's not really going to significantly affect his life. No one's ever going to be able to tell when he's older. And as far as, you know, if he doesn't want people to know, like his friends or anything, nobody has to know. So yeah, I think that's about it. If you got any other questions, then obviously just add them in the box below. You can message me on Instagram if you'd prefer. I will add all that down below. I will add the video for my birth story down below as well, in case you want to watch that if you haven't already. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.